What you're about to see is a legend in the broadcast industry in the Wichita market, not only regionally, but across the nation. He was so creative that he helped create one of the first commercials for Pizza Hut. And he's as important to the broadcast industry as Coleman, Learjet, Cessna, and even any other huge corporations that have come from this great city of ours. And now, Bob Walterscheid.
Well, I was born February 24th, 1933 in Wellington, Kansas at St. Luke's Hospital. My born mother was sent there by her parents because she got pregnant. In those days, it was not a good thing, so they sent her there to work and have me. And my soon-to-be adoptive mother was a nurse at the time. She had one child, as my sister, and she couldn't have any more, and she had indicated she'd like to adopt a child, and they called her. She went over to the hospital, and they said, "Here, we got this kid, and you want him?" And, yeah. She gave him $2.75 and walked out with me. Went immediately over to the Union Station to get on a train to go to California because my new adoptive dad had a new job with Northrop. When she walked up, she was carrying me, of course, and he said, "Will you put down that damn doll and help me with the luggage?" And she said, "That's a nice way to talk about your new son." So that was my introduction to my dad. As a teenager, I was attracted to a lady who became my wife. And we started going together when we were sophomores in high school, and had indicated when we were in high school, we both went to Cathedral High School, which closed down in 1956. And we had indicated then that we wanted to get married, and of course they said it would never last, and who knows, they could still be right. And we've been married now 65 years. And a friend of mine made a mention one time. He says the best years of his life was between the 7th grade and graduating from high school. And with all the wonderful things that have happened to me in my life, I have to look back and say, I think he had it right on the nail, because we enjoyed high school probably like very few classes did. I see kids now that are 12, 15, I want to be such and such. I had no idea what I wanted to be. I knew I had to go to work because I got married. I had to work, and went to a store down in the alley behind the Fourth National Bank, Sam's Smoke Shop. Bought a pipe and was smoking a pipe, and talking with him one day, he said he was going to sell. And I went to my dad and said, "Hey, can you loan me money?" And he did. He loaned me $4,000. And I bought the smoke shop, and Sam took his money and became a partner in the Trig Ballroom, which probably hardly anybody remembers anymore. And during that time, when I couldn't play football anymore, I started playing football board games, electric football and card football, this football. I come up with a game that I called pocket football, a little game that you could play in 15 minutes, and the thing fit in your shirt pocket. And my attorney at that time, who, by the way, I met at the cigar store, and we became dear friends over the years, he said, "Why don't you take that game and take it over to KAKE TV?" And they got this show going, and the show was called Opportunity Knocks, and it was a thing where people would be kind of like Shark Tanks today, but you would take a business idea, 3 people would present it on a show, and one would win, and then they'd had 3 shows all together. The 3 winners would then on the 4th show, and if you won, you got $25,000 to promote your business. Get in there, and I was with a guy that wanted to put a chicken farm in the salt mines in Hutchinson. so that you wouldn't have to season the chicken because they'd be eaten on salt. And you could turn lights on and off and they'd lay eggs twice as many. And so, and another guy who had an idea for a greenhouse, and you know, a dry cleaning company. You go in and get your, and they push a button and this rack comes around and brings your clothes up front. He wanted to do that in the greenhouse so he could move the plants around and catch the sun all day long. And me with the little pocket football game. And little did I know at the time, it had already been predetermined that the guy with the chicken farm would win. However, I had swayed one of the judges while I made my presentation on the air. And I lost, of course, with the chicken farm won. It never came to pass, by the way. And then, as I was walking off, Martin Umansky, who was the general manager of KAKE, come up to me and he says, "If you're ever looking for a sales job, give me a call." And I said, "What are you doing tomorrow at 10? And Martin, quick, he says, "I'm meeting with you." And we met and I got the job. And, you know, big training deal. I was handed a little booklet that they said was ratings. And I was handed another sheet of paper that had 6 company names on it. And that was my client list. And go out and sell $100,000 a month. And at newscast spots, 10 o'clock news, 1 minute was $75. Quite a stretch to 100,000. Anyway, that's how I got started in the television business. As I started out calling, I'd call on somebody and I said, "Well, you have to talk to my advertising agency." "Oh, okay." And so I'd go talk to them and they'd say goodbye. And then I'd go in and tell the reason, "Well, hey, you know, this is what happened." And Martin said, "Don't talk to agencies." He didn't want their business because he had to pay them 15%. And I discovered early on that if I was going to really do business, I had to talk to them. And so I started a program of my own to develop agency business for the station. And I got quite a bit of it because I ended up doing their writing and all the other stuff for them. And I found that I could write television commercials. And I told some friends of mine, I said, you know, when I started out doing that, I thought everybody wrote television commercials, like riding a bicycle and other things. And that it just kind of came natural, I guess, if you would say. And I thank the good Lord for giving me that kind of ability to do that. And that helped me a great deal. And I developed a number of agencies that brought me and the station a lot of business. And those were the days when all the commercials were live. Now then, we had clients that sold house full of furniture. Well, the guys would laboriously pull out all the furniture, stack it up in the studio, do the commercial, put it back in the prop room every time. And we only charged $15 for that, $15 a spot. One day I was walking in the basement of KAKE Television, and I saw them had a movie projector, and they were projecting a movie on the wall, black and white. And I casually asked, what's that? And they said, well, it's a scene of a car wreck. And I said, oh, well, when did you film that? And they said, this morning. And that astounded me, because I had an 8mm camera that I shot the kids on and sent it to Kodak, and 2 weeks later you got the film back. How in the hell do you get film you shot in the morning back in the afternoon? And they said, see that machine there, we put it in there and process it. I mean, you can go out and shoot today and have it ready tomorrow, and yeah. Could you go out and shoot a guy's building and maybe some of the stuff he has in it, you know, that we could make a commercial? Well, yeah, sure. Oh, okay. So I went out and sold one. I can't remember who the first one was, but we went out and had the news guys because that's the only ones that had cameras, was news guys. And some of them were the wind-up Bolex, you know, your handheld and so forth. But we shot the front of the building, we shot his sign, we shot merchandise inside and put it on the air. Now, to make the sound, they said, we'll put it on ET. I'm like, well, what's ET? I mean, all of these learning things that weren't in any manuals. Okay. And the ET is electronically transcribed. It was a little record, a vinyl disc. And they had the ability to record on that. And so in the control room, you had a director, you had an assistant director, and you had a sound man. And the sound guy put that on the turntable, back it up until he heard it, the first noise, have his finger on it while the turntable's running. As soon as he saw the picture on the screen, he'd let it up and we had sound. And so Martin, I'll give him credit, he had the foresight. He bought a camera, and they were not cheap at the time. Bought an Airflex, and he bought a tripod and some editing gear, and he hired a guy. And that was the first commercial film department in Wichita. And that was my start into motion pictures. I learned a lot from Martin, and I have a feeling that he learned something from me. I got to say that he helped me a great deal, because he did one thing that most management people don't do. He let you do whatever you thought you were man enough to do. And, you know, that's why KAKE TV was the ruler in the marketplace for many years. Those were the golden years of local television, with the local TV shows, you know, the Romper Room, Freddie Fudd, the old Cobblers, Santa Claus, Popeye, and Captain Bill, and glorious stuff, and Ethel Jane. We had women's shows and the IGA party line. My goodness, those were really something, and it was all done live, and it was just wonderful. And the other stations couldn't compete because they didn't have the talent, because we had we were like MGM was in the early days, and the others were like Republic. and they couldn't compete with us. They tried, and then a lot of our people at KAKE ended up going to other stations for various and sundry reasons. But those were wonderful, fun days, and I miss them. When I was with KAKE is when I did the Putt to the Pizza Hut commercial through the Harry Crow agency. Harry Crow and Byron Booth and Bob Peck. We were sitting there talking about it, and they wanted to do a commercial. I sold Dan Carney and Frank on buying a Nightmare movie, which was The Host and Rodney. And then the movie was the Hunchback of Notre Dame. You know, these guys are Catholic, they're going to buy that. And they did. And for $75, they got kind of the whole show, because they always had a theme where they'd come in at the breaks and you know, do funny stuff. So the thing was, they were going to make a pizza at the start of the show. Well, Rodney, of course, gets the dough, throws it up, lands on his head, does all kinds of, this is live, you know. So at the end of the show, they decide, no, they're going to give up making a pizza and watch television. They turn the TV on, and there's an ad for Pizza Hut, and they go out to buy a pizza. Forgot that the movie was over 2 hours long, plus the commercials. And around 1 o'clock is when the commercial ran. And the next morning, and I don't know how he did it. He either hand-delivered it or what, I don't know. But there was a letter in the mail Saturday. That was a Friday night. And it was Saturday morning, a letter in the mail from Dan that said, number 1, we were closed when the commercial ran. Number 2, who's going to be watching at 1 o'clock? Number 3, I'll never buy television again. What a statement to have, you know, in your hand. And Dan and I are friends. And so then they wanted to do a commercial, and we came up with that idea of the Putt Putt with Speed It Up and so forth. And that was quite a project. Something unusual about that. Ran at 65 in the Notre Dame-Michigan State game that ended up to be 10-10 tie. It wasn't live, it was a video playback because the rights and all of that stuff. So it played in the afternoon, on a Saturday afternoon, and the commercial ran in the halftime. The Pizza Hut commercial ran in the halftime. And Harry called me from a bar and said, "Walt," that's what he called me, "we ain't paying for that because it ran at halftime. Who in the hell's going to watch a halftime show on a tape delay?" "Oh, okay, we'll talk about it Monday." So I walk in Monday, and there were no guns. So I said, "Well, what are we going to do?" "About what?" And I said, "Well, you said you weren't going to pay for the spot because they're running halftime." "Oh, well, we'll pay for it." I said, "Well, what changed your mind?" They happen to have the biggest volume day of all time on that Saturday. And I said, "My God, we've struck oil. Now, let's pump it." And well, we'll try it again Thursday. So we had an afternoon show for Deputy Dusty or something, or whatever it was at the time. Anyway, played it again. That Thursday was big. Then they played, and finally they started playing it, and it ended up we actually made prints and sent them all over the country, and they were bad prints because the film we shot it on was not what you'd make prints from. It was like you sent your home movies to Kodak. They hard stuff, and because it'd play and wear. But then we even blew it up, and it played in theaters, and that played for 8 years. That commercial played for 8 years around the country. It's the most asked for commercial in Pizza Hut history. So there was a company in Kansas City, Hal Parker Studios, that was for sale. And I went up and looked at it, and God, it was ancient stuff, but he had an Aeroflex camera, and he had a lot of stuff. And I bought it for $12,000. I went to the bank and said, "Here's what I want to do," and they said yes. So there I was. I was in business, and the cinematographer that was with me out at KAKE, Randy Parker, had just left KAKE a little bit before me, and so I gave my notice, and I hired Randy because he took my VW bus up to Kansas City 3 or 4 trips to bring the stuff back and put it in my living room, and that's how we got started. 2 guys, 2 friends of mine, Don Staffenwan and Bob Hughes in Kansas City, both hired me to do commercial, and both wanted to be #1, so I told them they were. And the one was Taco Tico commercial, and the other one was Bow Wow dog food. And that's how we got started. Rusty Eck had a store in Valley Center. When I was with KAKE, he was first in Haven, then he went to Valley Center. And I was reading the paper one day, and he had his ad in there, and he had his logo was like bullet holes spelling out Rusty Eck. It looked terrible. So I called him, and I said, "Your logo looks like crap, it's terrible." And he said, "Well, do you think you can do better?" And I said, "Well, not me, but I know a guy that can." And he said, "Okay." Designed this thing, and we worked on it a little bit and got it down, and I took it to Rusty, and he liked it. He says, "How much?" "It's $200, and his head exploded. That was in the early 60s. Okay. But he bought it, and that's the logo they have today. Started in Valley Center, and then moved to North Broadway, and I went out to their KAKE Radio had a show on called Chicken Man, and it was a goofy comedy show, and it was, he's everywhere, and he did dumb things, And so, boy, I went to Rusty out there on North Broadway, and I got this idea for you, Rusty, to go on television. It's called Fordman. And that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And okay, so I pitched it to him, and he just, no. Then he took over the Turner Ford that was on East Kellogg. One day he called me in and he says, boy, things are tough. He said, I may lose the franchise unless I turn things around. And I said, let's do this Fordman thing. He says, you think it'll work? And I said, well, I don't know. Who knows what'll work, who knows what doesn't work. But I said, let's give it a shot. It's going to let people know who you are, what you are, and where you are. And that's what you need to do. And he says, okay. And I said, well, you're going to have to spend some money. And, okay, I'm ready. And so a lady up the street where we lived at the time did a lot of sewing, and I went to her, and she went to Penny's and bought some blue underwear and made a big F on a chest and sewed some red pants, and then got some leatherette like you used to put on car doors, and made a thing to cover over his feet to make the boots, and had a satin cape. All of a sudden we had Fordman. So we went out to film it, faster than a speeding Buick. And he runs past the car, trips and falls and knocks him both knees out. And we had to shoot from, the thighs up the rest of the day. Couldn't show a car with busted out knees. Within the first week that Fordman commercials hit the air, his sales increased 35%. And we had planned this to run for 90 days and evaluate it in 90 days. Well, it just went incredibly nuts. And then we quickly made the second commercial. So that's when the Fordman started and ran for 26 years. I can't understand some of the commercial content today where you have, in many cases, no idea what in the hell they're trying to sell you or what they're trying to accomplish. And it's my feeling, if you're going to buy 30 seconds of time to tell your story, you should tell who you are somewhere other than the last 3 seconds. And my biggest pet peeve on a local basis is people who put their kids on to make a pitch. Because two things, you can't understand them. Now the parents do because they've lived with them for 10 years or 9 years, but when I'm hearing that kid, I don't know what he's saying. I don't know why he or she is saying it. And it's pretty bad, pretty bad. And I just think the entire, creativity of local commercials has gone by the wayside, because now every guy that has a business thinks he's a TV star and can make a pitch. And it doesn't happen that much. Occasionally, you get somebody that can really do it, and that works. I would say that's 9 out of 150, not 10. I know it costs money and so forth, but I would talk in terms of more local programming. The kid stuff now is just absolute terrible animation, and I would, television as a whole, I would like to see less violence. Everybody hollers about that, but let me tell you, when I took my movie to Hollywood 40-some years ago, I had a G-rated movie, and I was told in at least 11 different places, if you don't have a car chase, a killing, a rape, an explosion, or gunfire in the first 10 minutes, you haven't got a movie. That was 40 years ago. What do you see today? You see 1, 2, or 3 of those in the first 10 minutes, and you see a lot of it in even the 3-minute preview. And if you see an ad in the paper, you're seeing somebody holding a gun. And we wonder what's happening to us. We wonder. I don't. I know what's happening. Creativity is simplicity expanded. And if you can make it down simple, and you can tie it into something in the past that people are aware of, you make instant recognition. Example, when the first automobile was made and tried to sell, they did not say, buy our automobile. What did they say? They said, we have a horseless carriage. Why? Because at that point, everybody traveled in a carriage pulled by a horse. So they knew that it could go from A to B. Now here's a carriage without a horse, horseless carriage. Bing. And then it developed into automobile, cars, etc., whatever. That's it in a nutshell. Bob Walterscheid. Innovation is creativity.